In Cape Town, firefighters are battling to extinguish a new blaze at Parliament after the fire that broke out in the National Assembly building yesterday flared up again. Fire and rescue services have confirmed that the void beneath the roof sheeting of the National Assembly is on fire. The National Assembly Speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, has lauded the overwhelming support that they've received from both public and private entities following the fire.
What came out this afternoon at the 4 o'clock meeting, together with the police, is that the system, which is now the screens where you monitor at the ops center, where you monitor what is happening around the Parliament itself, may not have been as visible as required. In that, usually we have big screens, and the Secretary of Parliament and the police confirmed that this time around, because of the total shutdown of energy, which occurred on the 21st of December, then our systems were affected and they were using a small screen, which is a problem for me. But I believe that beyond this, this is one of the matters which we will have to go into. But I do want to set the record straight on the matter of who was in Parliament at the time the police were there. It's confirmed now. 2, the cameras were working. In fact, when the police today went through the system, the backup system, they could actually confirm that, yes, indeed, the 2 young men are the ones who arrested the culprit. The perpetrator was found within the parliamentary precinct. So there is a definite tension between the executive management of Parliament and the branch of Nehawu in Parliament. And it's a matter I do not want to go into. However, for me, the issue is volume. At this point in time, when the country is confronted with a crisis of this magnitude, when a parliament, an august house, a seat of the legislature of the Republic of South Africa has been gutted down, I would have expected that we set aside our differences. We talk about those issues beyond, and in fact assist the actual investigation by the police so that we get to the bottom of what happened. So reports from the Secretary of Parliament, who is working with a collective who were part of the meeting this morning, pointed to the fact that there may be challenges. Yes, there may be tensions, which I'm aware of course, between our executive management and the branch of Nehawu. But I don't think this is the time for us to be dealing with those kinds of issues. Let's talk about facts. Let's talk about the exact things which happened. So the fact that the parliamentary security services were reduced and the fact that they were removed from night shift, actually the report we have received talks to the fact that there is no truth to that.
Well, for a little bit more on this, we're now joined via Zoom by United Democratic Movement Deputy President Nosiviwe. Thank you so much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Peter, thank you very much for having us, and good evening to the viewers at home.
It's such a tragedy to see what's playing out at Parliament. Your first thoughts when you heard the news about what was playing out?
Well, it's a very, very painful scene to watch. We know, for an example, that what has happened there, Peter, is a damning indictment of the current leadership of the African National Congress, who are supposed to be custodians of these national heritage sites, who have been given the mandate to govern South Africa. I mean, we have known for the longest period that there were numerous security breaches in Parliament, that the security in Parliament is very, very lax. It has actually degenerated over a period of time. It was just above average when I became a member of parliament in 2013. But it's gotten to a point where the security in parliament has really become non-existent. I mean, Peter, we have complained several times, even myself in the programming committee, chief whips committee, where you would have South Africans who are not accounted for. Let me rather call them strangers, because there's no way to know whether they are South Africans. But there would be people who gain access into the precinct of parliament, who are not accounted for, who did not report to the police, who were not searched. There was even one instance where this man who had actually not reported to the visitor center was looking for the president, the general, without making an appointment. And when we turned him away, he kept on going up and down the Max building, I don't know, looking for what. And when we reported the matter to the police, there was no clear explanation about how he gained entry into parliament, at what point, what time, what did he want, and which entry point he used. That is how lax the security system is in parliament. Peter, as you might already be aware, I've had the privilege of traveling around the world and visiting various parliaments, including your Capitol Hill in London and the parliament in Britain. In one instance, for an example, just to make an example without digressing, I had the privilege of addressing the party caucuses in Capitol Hill. The security detail, while they accorded me the respect that is required, for an example, of a member of parliament that comes from another country to talk to them, but the security detail, it was as if it was SONA in terms of how they made sure that they protected the institution, that they understood that there are certain protocols that one has to follow when gaining access into the building. But in South Africa, it's just a free-for-all, very lax. And it's going to be difficult when some of the stakeholders, like Nehau, for example, are raising issues that they have clearly raised before, but they were never listened to, or the management of parliament does not seem to have heeded their calls to beef up security. And when they raise these issues to say, we told you so, people don't want to hear it. They are accused of not being patriotic. They were patriotic at the time they raised the issues. They are still patriotic now when they are raising them, because the issue here, Peter, is that in order for us to be able to map a clear way forward, we need to have courageous conversations, difficult conversations about what went wrong, in order for us to be able to map a clear way forward. But it's very sad that in an institution such as Parliament, no one was able to pick up the fire when it started. I know the issues about sprinklers that failed, the alarm system that failed, but the infrastructure of Parliament in general has been crumbling for a very long time. Even as it was being renovated on a yearly basis, we used to complain about it not working optimally, about people being stuck in lifts in Parliament and lifts falling all over the place each and every now and then. So there were a number of safety issues indeed that we know, without even reading any report, that have always been a concern for us as Member of Parliament and as Chief Whips. The other issue for us as the United Democratic Movement, Peter, which concerns us a great deal, it's an issue that we raised in the special Chief Whips forum that we had today, was to say, before the presiding officers address members of the public and the media about what they might have found or what they might have discovered, or whether they've received briefings from, say, various stakeholders who are busy working in the precinct, whether it's the security cluster, whoever is responsible. It's important for them to make sure that they keep other stakeholders who help them with running the institution of Parliament, who help them with the political management of Parliament abreast of those activities. For example, it's unfortunate that I hear for the first time when I was watching this and following the reports in the media about some of the issues which have been discovered, which have not been communicated formally, for example, to even structures such as the Chief Whips Forum. And now we're expected as leaders and as Chief Whips of Parliament to be able to communicate with the public on a regular basis about these issues, and to also keep our parties abreast about what's happening in Parliament. And we are not, because we keep being blindsided, where we have to actually follow the news in order to know about what's happening in our own backyard. It's unfortunate. It's an issue that they said they would attend to and address, but I'm not entirely happy that what we actually said at the meeting is what is being done at this point in time.
This house belongs to you as well. And I just wonder, have you not been able to force these issues? It's one thing to raise them, but this house belongs to you, as I said, as much as to the majority party. Can you not force the issues?
You can't. Look, all we can do as the members of the opposition, because we don't have a mandate to govern, is to raise the issues, and we do so sharply. You know that even with your SABC and the challenges that faced the SABC in the past, we flagged them as opposition parties, raised some of the issues. In instances where it was possible to take the governing party to court, we did. But on issues about tightening up security in Parliament, and issues about improving health and safety in Parliament, these are issues that we have been harping on for many years. Even in the financial management of Parliament, the committee that oversees the work of Parliament, you will read reports where issues are raised sharply. Many of you would also follow, for example, when we have budget 2 votes in Parliament, we raise these issues. In all the platforms where there's an opportunity to raise issues of safety in Parliament, issues of security in Parliament, we have done so consistently in the Chief Whips Forum, in the Programming Committee, but it doesn't seem the leadership of Parliament over the years has actually listened to these issues. And now we've gotten to a point where we are not, people don't really want us to talk about the problem statement, to say, how did we get here and what the problems were. They all of a sudden want us to be patriotic and say, how do we map the way forward? What we want is for heads to roll. Those who are responsible for what happened. It's not just the 2 people who might have gained access into Parliament or breached security or did whatever they did. But what must be done now is to say, where are these lapses? Who is responsible for what happened? What could we have done differently? And in instances where heads are supposed to roll, heads must indeed roll. To make an example, so that when we put preventative measures in place to say that when Parliament is either renovated or whatever is done, that this does not happen again. But knowing how we tackle issues in South Africa, we are just going to hold those 2 guys responsible, celebrate because they've been arrested, hypothetically speaking, I'm making an example. But the people who are running the institutions, the people who make the call, aren't going to be held accountable for their actions.
So who do you hold responsible? Because it could be, if this building is in disrepair and not up to standard in terms of security, that you could have a State of the Nation address and people get injured because something happens to the building. Who is responsible, in your view, that should be taking the rap for this?
Firstly, the issue for me is that the executive authority of Parliament must be held to account. Held to account even for the actions and the omissions of their predecessors, because they are part of the same administration and the same government. That's number 1. So people must answer difficult questions about what the predecessors failed to do and what they have managed to do about issues that were flagged a long time ago. The second level should obviously be the executive management of Parliament. Some difficult questions will have to be asked to them, and they have to answer as to whether the issues that were flagged, issues that are contained in various reports, whether it's an audit report or an internal report, or whether it's just recommendations that come from the Financial Management Committee of Parliament, all of the issues that have been flagged by the institution and by various stakeholders around safety, the safety of Parliament, health and safety concerns in Parliament, security breaches that have taken place over an extended period, whether it's an investment in the renovation of Parliament, all the relevant stakeholders, including public works, must be actually made to account for their failures, for their actions and omissions insofar as keeping the Parliament, which is a national heritage, to the level that is required of it. Now we have turned from being a national key point to a national crisis point because of the failure of political leadership to do what is expected of them when they're entrusted with facilities and institutions of this country.
Mr. Nqakula, we're going to have to leave it there, but let's see what happens in the coming days in terms of bringing people to account. But thank you so much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us tonight.
Much pleasure.